Assalamualaikum, we are from Group A that are going to present our report about issue poverty in Malaysia due to COVID-19 pandemic.
Good day everyone, I'm Jeta Balingari here, metric number 289472. So let me start by explaining the objective of the assignment. So the first objective that we have is to identify and understand the types of poverty that exist in Malaysia. The second objective is to understand the impact or the seriousness that Malaysians face due to the COVID-19 pandemic. The third objective that we have is to observe the changes in household income groups and activity status of the head of household in Malaysia due to COVID-19 pandemic. And the fourth one is to understand the proposed initiative the government proposed focusing on rakyat's well-being. Now, turning our attention to the Malaysia performance in 2021. Malaysia's economy in the third quarter of 2021 appeared to have a decline of negative 4.5%, the central bank declared on Friday, due to improved lockdown measures, while the seasonally adjusted GDP was recorded at negative 3.6% in the third quarter. The central bank kept out a full-year development target of 3 to 4%, upheld by an incremental in financial action. All economic divisions, particularly development, residential requests, and trades with the central bank, fell short of expectations in the third quarter. Malaysia's economy is likely to improve in the coming months, according to World Bank's latest economic forecast. This is due to the transition of most states under the National Recovery Plan (NRP), which allows more economic activities to restart operations while adhering the SOPs. Now, turning our attention to the Malaysia performance in 2021. So now let's have a look at the Malaysia's gross domestic product (GDP). The graph above shows the trend changes in the gross domestic product (GDP) in Malaysia from Q1 2021 to Q3 2021. The bar graph above represents the GDP at a constant price. The volume level of GDP is defined as the gross domestic product (GDP) at a constant price. Constant price estimates of GDP can be calculated by expressing variables in terms of a base period. Meanwhile, the line graph represents the annual changes in percentage. In Q1 2021, the GDP at a constant price was recorded at RM 343 billion. Meanwhile, the annual changes were taken into account at negative 0.5%. In Q2, the GDP inclined dramatically compared to prior years, as 336.5 billion was recorded. The annual changes percentage soared as well to 16.1%. The economic execution within the second quarter of 2021 was upheld by the persistent development in economic sectors. However, in third quarter, the GDP plummets again due to newly implemented forward lockdown measures constrained to stop a perilous third wave of COVID-19. The GDP was set at RM 335.8 billion with negative 4.5 as the annual percentage. So, now let's move on to the monthly GDP. The upper line graph divides monthly GDP trend changes from January to September 2021. In January, the monthly GDP was recorded at negative 3.6%, and the GDP same percentage stabilized in February as well. In March, the monthly GDP rose to 6.1%. The GDP jumped to 39.7% in the second quarter of April, reaching a new high point. The GDP, on the other hand, fell to 19.3% in May. On the supply side, the economy performed well in the second quarter of 2021, primarily to continue expansion in the manufacturing sector and a resurgence in the service sectors. On the demand side, the expansion was influenced by increased household consumption and favorable net export growth. Furthermore, after 9 consecutive quarters of recession, fixed asset investment rebounded in this quarter. It continued to fall in June with a reading of negative 3.6%. Correspondingly, the country's month-to-month financial execution slowly made strides from compression of negative 7.6% in July and tapped an amount of negative 4.7% in August and encouraged move forward to negative 1.1% in September 2021. Now let's have a look about the slowdown in activities. The trend changes in the slowdown activities throughout all Malaysia's economics are displayed in the line graph above. Q2 of 2021 is represented by the blue line, while Q3 of 2021 is represented by the green line. The supply side performance of the economy in the third quarter of 2021 was due to a decrease in all major economic sectors, primarily manufacturing and services sectors. With a growth rate of 26.6%, manufacturing had a strong record in second quarter. However, it fell to negative 0.8% in the third quarter. The decline in the manufacturing sector is due primarily to restrictions on non-essential manufacturing activity. The services sector grew by roughly 13.5% in the second quarter. In the third quarter, however, it fell to negative 4.9%. It is because weaker consumer-related activism contributed to the drop in the third quarter. Recorded 40.3% for the construction sector in the second quarter. Unfortunately, it plummeted to negative 20.6% in the third quarter. Constraints in the operating capacity are the catalyst for the downturn in the construction sector. In the second quarter, mining and quarrying accounted for 13.9% of the overall. However, in the third quarter, it became negative 3.6%. Lower crude oil and natural gas production attributable to maintenance shutdown was the chief reason for this decline. Agriculture seemed to have a negative 1.5 percentage point in the second quarter, dropped 0.4% to negative 1.9% in the third quarter. Weak oil plant production combined with the long-term labor constraints could be the reason for the drop in the agriculture sector. Poverty can be defined as a person who lacks a sufficient amount of money or material belongings in their daily life. Absolute poverty, hardcore poverty, and relative poverty are 3 categories of poverty that exist. If a household's income is below the poverty line, PLI, and insufficient to satisfy basic requirements like food, water, clothing, and housing, it is considered to be in absolute poverty. It also includes not being able to pay for medical expenditures and not being able to provide a proper education for the children. Meanwhile, when a household's income is less than a food PLI, it is considered as hardcore poverty. Relative poverty, on the other hand, is defined as a household income that is less half than the national median. According to the 2019 methodology, the national median PLI valued as RM2,208 ringgit per month, with an average household size of 3.9 people. The mean food PLI was valued at 1,038 per month. Some people out there asking for food owing to extreme hunger. If this situation persists for a long time, it will lead to death. Poverty can be caused by a variety of factors. Pandemics are another factor that has contributed to the growth in poverty. Now, that's all from me. Thank you. Now I would like to pass to the second presenter.
Next point, relevant data and analysis. Bring our attention now to data analysis of absolute hardcore and relative poverty in Malaysia from 2009 to 2020. From 2009 to 2014, the trend was downward, but in 2016, it is inclined to 7.6%. In 2019, it plummets, and in 2020, the rate reached an all-time high of 8.4%. Next, the rate of hardcore poverty has reduced from 2009 to 2014. The rate rose to 0.6% in 2016. In 2019, the rate fell to 0.4% before rising to 1.4% in 2020. Next, from 2009 to 2014, the rate of relative poverty decreased. From 2016 to 2019, the rate has risen dramatically. The rate has gone down to 16.2% in 2020. In a nutshell, we can observe how the COVID-19 has affected the rate of poverty as well as the trend change in all three forms of poverty. Stage of household experiencing a decline in income. The majority of households saw their income fall and drop into a lower income bracket in terms of household distribution. In the year 2020, the number of households with income less than 2,500 has increased by 12.5% and shift to B1. As much as 20% of the group M40 household, which were earning between 4,000 and 10,000, have switched to B40 group. T20 group, in which 12.8% have shifted to the M40 group due to the COVID-19 pandemic. Next, based on the second graph income distribution in 2020, the income distribution for B40 dropped to 15.9% from the previous year, while M40 dropped to 36.9% from the previous years, and T20 group earned 47.2% in 2020 and 46.8% in 2019, an increase of 0.4% over the previous years. 88.5% of families led by paid employees have moved from T20 to M40, with 74.2% of households led by paid employees. The M40 group has changed to B40. Percentage of household by household group transition and activity status of head of household Malaysia 2020. Simultaneously, 9.9% of household with a self-employed head went from T20 to M40. In addition, the M40 category has shifted to B40. About 1.9% of people moved from T20 to M40, while 2.6% moved from M40 to B40 from other jobs. From this vantage point, we can see how COVID-19 has influenced people's jobs.
Hello and Assalamualaikum everyone. I am Siti Nur Sabila binti Amdan Halim. My matric number is 287732. I would like to continue with the presentation with importance of the poverty issue. Due to the COVID-19 pandemic, there is limited access education for children. This is because they need to use a strong internet and gadget for online classes. But some of people who face a poverty issue do not have an internet, financial, and human support. Secondly, hunger and disease. There is not enough food supplies, medication equipment for the whole family, especially for those who are affected by COVID-19. Lastly, this incident clearly indicates that during COVID-19 pandemic caused the company to suffer the loss, decreased payroll payment, and layoff of employees that made unemployment data rapidly increase.
The solution proposed to solve this issue: firstly, strengthen social safety nets and provide government-funded empowerment. The government will provide many initiatives to the people in ensuring their life. The government always focuses on the welfare of the people, especially during the COVID-19. This gives many assistance in helping the needy people in Malaysia. Secondly, income redistribution to uplift those in poverty. The government needs to arrange back the income level of the people in Malaysia more efficiently and systematically. This is because many rich people become richer and even the poor people become worse. Thus, the government must prioritize the people's income to be more secure in the future.
Okay, next for part 3, survey of poverty in Malaysia due to COVID-19 pandemic. In this part, we're likely to study on how people from different income classification answer 5 of our questions. Based on the 20 respondents' response, we managed to construct a clustered bar from each question. For the first question, we asked them about the impact of their income during the COVID-19 pandemic. Based on the graph from the survey result above, Most of the respondents that answer yes are from B40, which is 40%. For the least respond that vote yes are from T20, which is 10%. Besides, for the answers no mostly came from B40 cluster on 25%, and the least votes are from M40, which had 0 response. Question number 2. In this question, the respondent were asked if their allocation of their household income has shifted. The result of the survey shows that 45% from the B40 cluster to choose the answer unchanged. It means that their income classification has not shifted. For the list that vote unchanged is coming from M40, which is 0%. Three people from T20 vote the same answer, that makes their percentage to 15%. The answers that relate to shifting and income classification status, which are M40 to B40 and T20 to M40. 20% of the respondents from B40 cluster answer declined in the same household group, and only them. For the next question, in this survey, respondents were asked if they have received any cash aid from the government or NGO. According to the results shown in graph 3.3, 40% of the respondents from B40 are majority that vote yes, and the minority that vote yes are from cluster T20 and M40 with 10%. Most who answer no were from B40 with 30%, and the least are from M40 with 0%. A total of 25 individuals in Kedah who were infected with COVID-19 at work have received cash aid under the Social Security Organisation (SOCSO) Work Disaster Scheme. For the next question, based on the graph 3.4, the result shows that the response of the respondent to question, which is, did any member of your household cease working from income or work less hours as a result increased family responsibilities? B40 holds the record for being the most respondent who choose to answer both of the two answers, which is 35% yes and 35% no. For the answer no cluster that answer the least is M40, which is 0%. For answer yes, the cluster that answer the least is these two clusters, among which are 5% from T20 and 5% from M40. Employment income losses are decomposed according to the 3 types of transitions. First, workers lose their job or their contract is not renewed. Second, workers remain employed but they enter temporary layoffs. Third, workers remain employed but they work only a fraction of their usual hours. The losses are further distributed by vulnerable subgroups most likely to experience higher income losses and increased risk of poverty. For the last question, we asked the respondent if they agree that employers have to close their business place of employment during the entire outbreak. Employees in Malaysia are under legal obligation towards its employees to ensure a safe and healthy workplace. This obligation is provided under common law as well as under Section 15 of the Occupational Safety and Healthy Act 1994. OSHA further imposes an obligation on employers to formulate a health and safety policy at the workplace.
4.1 The proposed initiative. In Budget 2022, Malaysia government will focus on rakyat well-being to embrace the essence of Keluarga Malaysia concept as exposed by Yang Amat Berhormat Prime Minister. Based on the poverty issue in Malaysia, the government has an initiative to help them enhancing the cash assistance and welfare. Direct cash assistance gives purchasing power to vulnerable people to use it for their family well-being. In addition, there is Yayasan Keluarga Malaysia established to protect the welfare of orphans to ensure the future of their children continue to be safeguarded. Due to the pandemic COVID-19, there are 4,700 and more children that have lost their parents who passed away because of the virus. 4.2 Background of the project. To achieve harmony and prosperity of the nation, Prime Minister Datuk Seri Ismail Sabri Yaakob has launched the Keluarga Malaysia or Malaysia Family concept. The initiative and programs for poverty issue established in Bantuan Keluarga Malaysia BKM, which are direct cash assistance and welfare to provide for those who are really affected and needed during COVID-19 pandemic. Bantuan Keluarga Malaysia BKM is an improvement from the previous Bantuan Prihatin Rakyat BPR, with the suggestion via the publication of the public consultation paper on improving assistance to the rakyat. Targets in direct cash assistance are to enhance education and public health, as well as create job opportunities that will be anchored by enhancing recovery, building resilience, and driving renewal.
Next, for 4.3, targeted population for the initiative. Other proposals address that difficulties single mothers have in sustaining their children, apart from the B40 senior citizens who have a lack steady income and insufficient retirement saving. Consider the following example. The government will also grant upgrade for 2022. Single parent household will receive additional 500, making up to 5,000 each month in addition. Senior citizen will be given an additional 300 in support. Household of citizen, a single mother or father falls into category. If you have 3 or more children, you can get a maximum of 2,500 for BKM. BKM is estimated to gain more than 9.6 million in total benefits. Million people will with an 8.2 billion budget, which is a significant increase, a rise from million users and an increase in funding of 7 billion under BPR. Next, the objective of the proposed initiative. The Social Department JKM manage welfare aid in the income eligibility is handled by them in accordance with the 2019 Food Security Act. The requirement will increase compared to 26 poverty line income of 1,169. The 27 poverty line income is 1,169. 980 in line income efforts to broaden the scope of social media. The government's sustained commitment to protection is reflected in this measure to make certain that assistance reaches those who need it, considering the increasing expense of living. They are actually in need. As a result of this increase, more people will benefit from the assistance system. As a result, JKM's benefit, an increase in allocation projected a total 200 million and a total 2.4 billion would be allocated to the project. More than 400 people will benefit from the distribution and social support households that are in need.
Next, implementation of the project. Firstly, Bantuan Keluarga Malaysia. This allocation will be given to those who are really affected by the income. Bantuan Keluarga Malaysia will give the assistance to some households, single parents, senior citizen household, and unmarried person based on their income. Secondly, welfare assistance by Social Welfare Department. This will focus on the income eligibility requirement when it is raised to the 2019 food poverty line income compared to 2016. This will focus on general assistance, elderly assistance, unemployment assistance for OKU, and federal general assistance. Thirdly, Yayasan Keluarga Malaysia. The government focused on the welfare of orphans. Due to the Covid-19 pandemic, many children lost their parents because of the virus. So this will help in the welfare, education, and future of the orphans. Next, Ministry. The presentation of the budget 2022 was managed by the Malaysian Ministry of Finance by Yang Berhormat Senator Tengku Datuk Seri Utama Zafrul Aziz. This presentation was announced on Friday 29 October 2021. The main point is Keluarga Malaysia Makmur Sejahtera. Next, aims that were planned to be achieved by the ministry. First, get a better society of the Malaysian people into their life. Second, enable the people prosper the new normal brought on by the Covid-19. It taken from the aspiration of the Keluarga Malaysia concept and was followed the 12th Malaysian plan. Thirdly, target group of people and empowering the education and healthcare aspect. Since the pandemic, many schools were closed due to minimize the cases, so the allocation can help parents in arranging the school supplies for the children.
4.8 Suggested Budget. The budget for this initiative was prepared with trade-off and prioritization among programs to ensure fits with government policies and priorities. There is an allocation of 8.2 million ringgit Malaysia to more than 9.6 million recipients of Malaysia based on Bantuan Keluarga Malaysia BKM. The government will give to household assistance of 2,000 ringgit Malaysia with minimum income with 2,500 per month based on their dependent. Next, the government provide to additional assistance to 0.5 million single parents with children, senior citizen household, single senior citizens, and singles. Over 25 million combined with contribution from NGO, corporate sector, and all parties provide for initial startup fund to welfare and education or fund due to COVID-19 in Yayasan Keluarga Malaysia's program. 4.9 Expected outcome from this initiative. Coming up with 8.2 million of allocation from this initiative of direct cash assistance is not an easy time for the country economically and politically. Given all these issues in the recent, the government expects with this initiative of direct cash assistance to be prosperous in line with 12th Malaysian Plan and the Shared Prosperity Vision 2030. The budget 2022 is expected to bolster economic confidence at macro level. Fueling growth permits on strengthening the recovery, building resilience, driving reform for recovery from the COVID-19 pandemic. This initiative of direct cash assistance was expected to help people who really suffered, needed, and were affected due to the COVID-19 pandemic. This initiative also influenced the economic sector that enhanced the local markets, retailers, and producers. This initiative not only sees an opportunity to focus on rakyat well-being, but it also working to institutionalize, nationally scale up existing social protection system and strengthen this against future shocks.
Lastly, conclusion. The present report examines that the status of poverty in Malaysia has increased since the COVID-19 pandemic, especially in 2021. The pandemic uncovered vulnerabilities of our society, from inadequate social protection to income and wealth inequalities to gaps in healthcare system, digital divide, and so on. Based on Malaysia's performance in 2021, we can state that this country is experiencing a sharp economic crisis because of the slowdown in economic activities in 2021 due to the pandemic. So, according to the Keluarga Malaysia concept in 2022, the government launched a new budget as a great way in raising the living standard of the people with an allocation of 332.1 billion. Direct cash assistance and welfare has become the first initiative. The Malaysian family government is expected to focus on increasing the cost of living of Malaysians, curbing the COVID-19 epidemic, and increasing the purchasing power of Malaysians. As a result, the status of poverty in Malaysia will reduce slowly and the people can live better even with the COVID-19.